Welcome to the Supplier Diversity and Inclusion podcast series by Fips Consulting. In this podcast series, I speak with international guests who share their experience on supplier diversity and inclusion. Today, I talk to Scott Johnson, who is the founder of Veteran Owned UK. Scott, I'm so glad you're my guest today.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Andrea. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So as we seldom talk about veterans in Europe, can you tell me a bit more about your organization? So when and why did Veteran Owned UK start?
Yeah, so I founded Veteran Owned UK, or I had the idea for Veteran Owned UK back in July 2017. And as much as I'd love to be able to claim the idea of coming up with it myself, I actually saw an American version of what Veteran Owned UK originally started at. So an online business directory for the public to find a business that's owned by a veteran, somebody served in the military within that country. And then, so taking a look over on google.co.uk, I noticed that there wasn't anything available in the UK at that time in that kind of sense. So for a bit of context, I served in the British Army between 1996 and 2004. So that era, really, I had one foot in two different versions of the British military. So in the late 90s and the very early 2000s, up until about 2001, 2002, the main kind of conflict at that time was Northern Ireland. And I served in Northern Ireland, and it was very much about not saying you was in the military at that time. And then in the early 2000s, obviously September the 11th happened in America, and then the UK, along with other allied forces, ended up going into Afghanistan in late 2001. I was in Afghanistan in early 2002, and there was probably a marked change there in that time. And it was probably down to a couple of things like Facebook and social media becoming available, widely present, and people having the ability to show what they do, showcase their life, so to speak. And Northern Ireland ramping down, Afghanistan ramping up, and this new invention of social media giving people access to show what they do really changed the perception of people in the military and how acceptable it was to say that you was in the military at that time. So when I saw this American version of an online business directory, I thought, what a great idea. If I don't know somebody local or personally that sells the product or supplies the service that I might need, then the next best place that I'd like to look for that thing would be with my peer group, fellow veterans. You know, I know roughly what I'm going to get in terms of their work ethic and their life experiences, shared experiences, mindset similar to mine. So that'd be the kind of people that I'd like to spend my money with. So because there was nothing in the UK, I thought, typical squaddy stubbornness, I guess. If nobody else is doing it, let's do it myself. So bought the domain name and started the social media pages and really spent 6 months looking at proof of concept. Would this work in the UK? Because the culture in the US when it comes to veterans is very different to what it is in the UK. And the US is probably about 10 to 15 years ahead of where we are in the UK. So I started talking to different people I knew and people my connections could pass me on to and asking, you've got a business, would you be interested in having this stamp that says you are a veteran-owned business and highlighting the benefits that comes with being a veteran and now having your own business? And this community of people started coming out of the woodwork and saying, we've been looking for this. You know, there's lots of groups available for veterans, whether it be social groups, hobby groups, just plain, kind of conversations, banter groups, whatever it might be. But there was nothing specific for veterans who now own a business. So in February 2018, we launched the version 1 of Veteran-Owned UK as a website, and it was very much focused on that business directory. Right. And there's a key aspect to that, I think, because we didn't turn into an advocacy group supporting veteran-owned businesses from a point of view of getting more work for them through corporates, highlighting the benefits in that supplier diversity arena for about 3 years after we started. So what it allowed us to do was build up this gathering, this directory, this online database of businesses that were owned by veterans through being that directory. Right. And then corporates started coming to us when they'd see the directory and say, hey, you've got 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 members in your directory. We'd like to do more with them, and we'd like to work with those businesses. How can we do that? And that's when Veteran-Owned started to diversify, if you like. We haven't stopped the directory. That still exists. But today now we're two halves of one coin, if you like. One side being the business directory and the other side being an advocacy group in the supplier diversity area, and trying to encourage corporate to do more work with veteran-owned businesses and all the good aspects that they bring to the table in terms of integrity, professionalism, a massive experience, huge amounts of leadership training and management training from literally day one. The military does that with you, and the corporate world doesn't do that. Generally, if you start at the bottom level, it isn't for several years until you start getting low management training and then higher management training as you progress. But the military does that from day one because it wants everybody to be a leader within their own right. So there's lots of benefits of working with veteran-owned businesses.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's great that you saw that in the US and then you came back and you were like, okay, that would be great to join. So it's not there, so let's just just found it. So how do you make sure that the veterans in the UK are actually aware that there is such an organization? And how is the perception? Are they all like very much open to join, especially the ones with their own business, or is it more like, no, I don't really, going back to what you said before, the two sides of the coins, I don't really want to flag myself as veteran?
Yeah, I think there is openness to it. So today, as we stand, Veteran-Owned UK has over 1,700 members, and that makes us probably the biggest advocacy group in the UK when it comes to supplier diversity. And that's because of that directory side of things and how we started. So we promote into the veteran community as a whole through social media. We talk about business and owning your own business or being self-employed, and then those who have got their own business or are self-employed then come and join the directory. And it's pretty active. We have daily sign-ups and it's increasing daily. Now, 1,700, while it sounds a lot in terms of other advocacy groups out there, and we work closely with those guys, and everybody's doing great stuff in their own rights for the benefit of diversity. It's estimated in the UK that there's anywhere between 195,000 and 322,000 active businesses owned today by people who've served in the military. So 1,700 is just a tiny portion of what's suggested to be out there. Now, there's no hard and firm data for that. There's two sets of research being done, one through myself at Veteran-Owned UK and the other through the Federation of Small Businesses, and we're both at the top and the lower end of those ranges. So the reality is probably somewhere in the middle of that, around 250,000 active businesses. Now, for context, there's research out there from the likes of Barclays that suggest that ethnic minority-owned businesses is around 250,000 active businesses today. So that puts veterans in a similar kind of landscape as ethnic minority-owned businesses in terms of scale, in terms of size. So there's lots more work to be done, in spreading the word and getting more veteran-owned businesses to be part of veteran-owned UK. And there'll be an aspect of what we spoke about earlier. Some people will be, listen, I don't want to put my status as a veteran-owned business on there. I'm happy to just keep doing what I'm doing. There's others who very much just instantly say, yes, I'd love to do that. I'm always telling people, I've served in the military, I am a veteran. And that's great either way, it's what suits the business ultimately at the end of the day. But we operate in, as I said, in kind of two different ways. So we've got the directory, but if people don't want to say publicly that they're a veteran-owned business, we've got a peer-to-peer support group that runs through Facebook groups. And there's over 2,000 people in that group currently, because there's people that have a business and there's people who want to start a business and don't yet have it. And it's very much about asking questions. I've got a problem with this. Has anybody got experience? Because ultimately, business is business. And a lot of the problems that we all face, it doesn't matter whether you're a personal trainer, it doesn't matter whether you're a plumber, it doesn't matter whether you're an accountant, it doesn't matter whether you're a architect, problems with suppliers, problems with tax, problems with raising funds, whatever it might be, are kind of universal. So people can have those conversations and help each other out and say, listen, when I had that problem, I did this thing and this really worked well for me. Or often the better answers are, when I had this problem, I did this and it was no good. That didn't work for me. And learning from the what to do or what not to do and crossing that one off your list and thinking, right, well, we won't do those things. Let's try these ones first. And kind of giving people that steer in that direction. So if they didn't want to be publicly listed within the directory, then they can be part of the group as well. And then there's conversations to go on in there around supplier diversity, and we can put them into the corporates. So it's kind of a private version of being listed. So they're still verified as being a veteran-owned business. We do that through two ways. So we look at service for the individual, and they prove service to us. And then we look at company's house. Are you the majority owner of that business? And then that gets what we call verification. In other countries, they call it certification. So we're holding off on certification slightly because we're working with the UK government and the Cabinet Office and the Office of Veterans Affairs to try and get certification launched officially in collaboration with the government. So there's a couple of things in the pipeline from the government in terms of a system to prove service automatically or automated manner, rather than currently people have to do that through what's called a certificate of service. But there'll be a means of the government doing that through a website in the future, and then having that backed by the government, as they do in the US. So the US has got the Small Business Administration, and they have a veterans business department within it, and it's specifically focused on supporting veterans. And they also have good things like ring fencing government contracts to service disabled veteran-owned businesses, for example. I'd like the government to do something similar to that in the UK eventually.
Right. Yeah, that's great, and I guess it also reduces manual work and.
Absolutely, I'm a big fan of automation.
Right, and no, I love that the veterans also have the choice to actually choose: do they want to be publicly listed or just kind of in the smaller group, but still have all the advantages of all the benefits from the organization and the collaboration between the different members. So how can you mentioned you have all these great businesses in your network and the public database or network, but also the ones for the corporate. So how does that work? Is it like one is free and then corporates have to pay for kind of the bigger list, or how does it work?
So the kind of, like I said earlier, the two sides of the coin, essentially.
Right.
So the business directory side of things, so veteran-owned businesses can list within the directory for free. Standard membership is free. We do have two paid levels, which introduces greater functionality within your listing. If you want to embed videos in your listing, if you want image galleries, for example, if you're a service business, then you may have a video showcasing or explaining what your service offers. If you sell a product, then you may want an image gallery showing different versions of your product. So that comes through a small monthly fee, and it's very, very small for those type of directories.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got about 95% of our membership is on the free listing, and it'll always be free, because I'm a big believer in when you start a business, then every single penny that you've got should go into growing that business.
Right.
And us being able to help through our website and our reach into the public, I think is a great way for us to, kind of force multiply somebody starting their business and really increase their reach. So the website gets anywhere between 15,000 to 35,000 page views per month.
Wow.
What I'm most pleased with isn't the amount of page views, it's actually what's called the bounce rate. So the amount of people that come into the website and they go on to search more than that first page. So they don't come in, see something and then leave, because we don't sell anything on the website. There's no real, there's an about us page, and that doesn't get a lot of views. So it does what it's meant to do. People are coming into the home page and they're typing in a business type, a keyword, whatever it might be, to search for a business. And they're going on to look through multiple pages at the back end of that. So that bounce rate is down in the low single percent, generally between 1% and 2% on a monthly basis. So it's a huge amount of traffic going and finding businesses, and then clicking through to their website to hopefully buy from whatever that business is doing. And then the other side then is the corporate side. So we offer what's called a founding key partnership with our corporates. And essentially what they do is they employ the services of Veteran-Owned UK and our team to consult to them for a 12-month basis. And we work around three main work streams, essentially. Supplier diversity being the biggest one. And we'll work with those corporates around matching their requirements to capability from within the veteran-owned community. So we'll use the back-end functionality within the database. Generally, they give us some kind of spreadsheet that says we need the following business types. We'll then go and match that from within the database with, here's the businesses that are capable of delivering that service or supplying those products, whichever the company needs. Here's the website. Take a little look, and then if you want contact, then you can contact them directly yourselves, or you can have us to act as the middle person. And that works really well, being the middle person. I'll give you an example of how that happened, how we found out that it works well. So we worked with ISG Fit Out when they were doing the Netflix offices in London, and they approached us and said the client has asked for more supplier diversity in this fit out. Would you be able to help us with sourcing businesses? So, no problem at all. Give us a list of requirements and we'll match capability for that. So we give them a big list of businesses that could do the things that they needed done. And then they went directly and contacted them. And every Friday we have a networking session within the Veteran-Owned UK community. And somebody happened to mention to me, there's a new scam going around. Somebody's contacting us saying they're ISG Fit Out working on the Netflix offices. Would you like to tender for the work? And I was like, that's not a scam. No. That's genuine. I've been working on this in the background. Reply. Press yes now. They genuinely want to do that. So I went back to ISG to go to everybody whose name I put forward and said, if you've received an email, respond to it because it's a genuine offer.
Yeah.
They do want you to tender because they want more supplier diversity in this tendering process. Apply for that. So whenever I talk to corporates now around that supplier diversity piece, I say, look, if you want us to, we'll act as the middle person because the businesses are all familiar with Veteran-Owned UK. The majority of people know me on a personal basis through posts in the group, through contact, and up until around 500 businesses, I used to know most of them by name. From a business, I could relate that to who the owner was, what they did, and what their kind of background was. But I lost track then. My brain couldn't keep up with the directory as it grew. So the other work streams that we work on is recruitment from the wider veteran community. So a lot of businesses realise that there's a great opportunity for employing veterans, service leavers, those leaving the military. And we help because we've got a really good reach into the wider veteran community because that's how we focus, as I said earlier, on getting new businesses. You've got to reach out to the whole veteran community and stumble across those that have businesses. So we can put job adverts out there and information about upcoming roles. We go along to some recruitment days, armed forces recruitment days, and talk about the business from a non-employee point of view. So how they actually support veterans, how they're doing good work in supporting veterans through supplier diversity, how they talk about their veteran program, how they've got an armed forces network within the organisation of veterans who are employees, how they support the reserves, how they support spouses of those who serve in the regular military. So there's lots of good things that we can do there. And then the third and final one, which is the smallest one really, is about sales into the veteran community as a whole. And there's one caveat in that role. I won't work with anybody on sales unless they're offering the veteran community something above and beyond what Joe Bloggs walking into the store off the high street would get. So they need to have some kind of offer, whether it be discount or an additional perm or whatever it might be. One of our biggest clients on that is Vodafone, the mobile phone company. So they come along. They've been with us for pretty much since the early days of us offering the Founding Key Partner program. And they offer now the Vodafone Advantage scheme to veterans as a whole. So you used to be able to get that through the Defence Discount service, but you have to pay for that. So it's a service where you have to pay for a membership and then you get discounts. So I talked Vodafone into offering that to the wider community, and they've been great doing that. So you get 15% discount off your Vodafone tariff just by going in and proving your service, either within the store on the high street, or if you order online and then just send them an email with your information, and you get that discount instantly added. So it's something great for people to save a little bit of money, especially in these days.
Right. I love the scam story.
Yeah.
But I think that happens to many of the different diverse businesses from the different organizations who suddenly get an email from, I don't know, a corporate they never heard of. I mean, never thought of working with. And no, that's scam. Oh, no.
Yeah. It's, and it's naturally they go and Google, and, some big corporates you've heard of, some big corporates you hadn't heard of, and you go and Google them and you find out they're a multi-billion-dollar company, global organization, and instantly people think, what does this huge company want to do with little old me and my company? It's got to be a scam, and people were expecting them to reply and say, yes, I'd love to be, find out more about the tendering process, and expecting the reply to say, no problem, we can get you access to the tender, please pay us £2,000 to do that. That's what they were expecting, and it wasn't the case in this instance. And I think people have to be aware of that because it does happen very often. But there is good out there, and there are corporates that want to work with smaller businesses, and there's huge amounts going on in the world with supplier diversity. And one of our corporate partners, CBRE, They've pledged to spend $5 billion by 2025. $3 billion by 2025 into diverse suppliers.
Yeah.
It's a huge amount of spend.
Yeah.
And there's great opportunities for organizations, veteran-owned businesses, diverse organizations, ethnic minority, female-owned businesses, LGBTQ plus-owned businesses, disabled-owned businesses, to really tap into that willingness to spend in those demographics. And it allows businesses, small businesses, to scale through those contracts, through that work, through that support with the corporates. But there has to be a bit of responsibility from the corporates there. You can't just look at your KPIs, your targets, and say, we need to spend X amount of pounds, X amount of dollars.
Right.
Within the next 12 months. We haven't done that in 9 months. We've got 3 months left. Quick, let's just put some contracts through diverse businesses, because you literally sink those businesses. You'll drown them under that kind of golden carrot, because they won't be able to finance the wages that needed. They won't be able to finance the equipment, the supplies, the stock, whatever it might be. So there needs to be this collaboration between the corporate, between the diverse business, and work together to scale responsibly, to grow in a sustainable manner. So smaller contracts initially, that's just beyond what they're used to. Allow them to bring in 1, 2, maybe 3 new employees that they can finance. Have good payment terms, or stick to your payment terms. If you say you're 30 days, pay on 30 days. Don't come back in 35 days' time and say, oh, sorry, you didn't have this address, or you didn't have the PO number in your invoice. Can you resubmit? And, the clock starts again. Because it's really meaningful to small businesses to get paid on time, because, they need to pay the wages of the staff. They need to pay the suppliers of materials. Talk them through the approved supplier process. These are the type of documents that we'd expect. Anti-bribery and corruption policies. Most small businesses have never even heard of that, because they're 1, 2, 3, 4 people within the organization, and to have an anti-bribery and corruption policy, how are we dealing with that? We're predominantly dealing with residential or domestic type clients, and the public. On a one-to-one basis. There's no bribery or corruption ever going to come into those small scale transactions. So they may need a little bit of help with that. And just work together and, hold each other's hand through the process, because there's benefits for both, for the corporate and for the small business in working together. So I think it's really good when you see corporates taking that time and having those conversations with small businesses.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. It needs to come from both. So both sides have to give a little bit, right? So it's not just having these targets of spending so much dollars with diverse owned businesses, but it's also looking at, okay, what are we buying? Where are we buying that? Is it all global contracts, whereas it's probably a bit harder to find diverse businesses to deliver what's needed compared to smaller regional requirements, where you can more likely find diverse owned businesses to provide whatever you need there.
Yeah, definitely. And, it's pretty easy once they start the process of working together and having that open communication, and it can go quite quickly. It doesn't have to be just, here's access to a portal, and there's a list of them out there. Just fill in the details, and the person goes in and just gets their mind blown by the different list of requirements, and it could be little things like, yeah, absolutely. It could be little things just like, your insurance levels. Maybe you've got £2 million worth of professional indemnity insurance, and the company wants 5 million. So you've got to go back to your insurer, and that instantly brings cost for your policy going up before you even get through the process and find out whether you get any work or not. So it incurs costs for those small businesses. And I think the biggest one really is time. because they're unfamiliar with it. It takes a lot of time for people to sit down and go through those 10, 15, 20, 25 pages worth of, portal requirements. Please submit this, who's owners within the business, what's the different insurance levels you have, please provide these policies that you might not have. So you've got to go and find out and get templates and start writing and filling the details in. And it can take hours and hours and hours worth of time. But the small businesses, if they're doing that, they're not generally doing the thing that the business is there to do,
right.
Because they haven't got a team of 50 people in the background with a sales and marketing team and a procurement team and, a compliance team who've got the policies sitting there. So it's an individual generally that has to go and put those, the leader of the business, the owner of the business that has to go and put those things together. And if you're thinking, I may or may not get work out of this, some people fall at that first hurdle and they just turn around and say, you know what, it's not worth it.
Right.
Maybe I'll get £3,000, £4,000 worth of contract. Time I pay my costs, if I put my hourly rate into this, there's no profit in it for me because it's so difficult to get through this. So I think that hand-holding from the corporate and say, listen, this is what we need. We understand it's a substantial piece of work. Here's some templates that others have told us work well for them to use, and we've found that they meet our requirements. But here's what we're offering at the back end of it. We want to start you off in some small contracts because we want you to grow into it with us. But we want to get you into something local, something regional that you can fulfill. And we're just going to stretch you a little bit in terms of what you used to. Employ some new people off the back of this. We're going to pay you regularly, pay you on time, and then you're going to be able to fund those new employees, that new equipment, that new stock, whatever it might be. And then we want to put you into the next level, a slightly bigger contract, and then a slightly bigger contract. Right. And over the next 5 years, we want you to work from, a small scale supplier into a medium, into a large scale. And having those open conversations, it lets that small business know, you know what, this is worth the effort. This is worth the time. It's not just, I'm going to do all this work and then not get the contract because they're going to go with the same usual other corporates within the supply chain that have been, having those contracts for years and years, and just carry on with them. So it's wasted time, wasted work essentially. So be open, have those conversations, and you'll get a great part of your vendor list. You'll get a great supplier that really wants to work with you. Your customer service will jump through the roof instantly for one, rather than just dealing with huge corporates that you're, even if you're spending millions of pounds in a billion pound company, you're still a small part of that machine.
Right.
If you're spending tens of thousands of pounds with a company that may be turning over 50 to 100,000 pounds annually, then you're a big part of that machine.
Yeah.
So you've got a great supply base there, and a great business that will work with you because they want to grow and they want to supply you with good service, good product, whatever it might be. In terms of the standard business metrics, quality, cost and delivery, they'll be at the top of it every single time for you as an organization.
A very interesting conversation, and we're almost running out of time, but I still wanna ask you, do you know of a organization similar to yours in other European countries, like in France or Germany?
I don't know, and that's the downside, I guess. So the only place I've ever seen a business directory is in the US, substantial ones within the US, and I knew one directory back in the early days that they had over 100,000 businesses listed with them. They were all veteran owned, so it's a lot bigger in terms of scale. So there's around 18 million veterans in the US. There's around 2.4 million in the UK, so it's around 8 times the size. So, and the support is out there, a lot different to what it is in the UK. As I said, Small Business Administration, and the Veteran Business Department. So, but that directory actually closed because it grew from, starting and not having the idea that it would get to that scale, and they didn't monetize it, and they just weren't able to keep up with doing the work because the guy had a normal job, and he started it just thinking it would be a small thing, and it grew to this huge organization, and he had to close it because he couldn't monetize it, and therefore he couldn't employ people to run it because it was taking hours and hours and hours a day that he physically didn't have enough time as one individual. So that was a shame. But there's several others out there around the 40,000 that are active today. There's a small one in Australia, and there's a small one in Canada. But apart from that, in Europe, I've never come across one. So Veteran Owned UK, the plan in the future is to expand into the UK, the allied countries English speaking initially. So Veteran Owned US is established and has a small number of businesses. Say small on US terms. It's about 500 businesses in there today, and we launched that as a soft launch during the pandemic of all times to do something. Literally the week before the world shut down. So we've just parked that one there now, and it's growing under its own steam very slowly, which is great because it allows us to get those mechanics in place. And then we plan to move to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and then eventually phase 3. So phase 1 is UK, phase 2 is English speaking, and then phase 3 will be the non-English speaking allied countries. So we've got some links into Israel with the Israeli Defense Force, for example. And Israel is known as the startup nation, very strong entrepreneurial spirit there. So lots of businesses, and most people serve in Israel within the Israeli Defense Force. So a huge number of veteran-owned businesses. But because of that, it'll need to work slightly differently, because somebody generally wouldn't want to find a veteran-owned business because they know that 90% of businesses are probably veteran-owned. So what they might want to do there is find a business that's owned by somebody who's served in the same unit as them, who's somebody who's from a particular trade, or they might be airborne, or they might be an electrical person, whatever it might be. I was an EOD, a bomb disposal engineer, so somebody might want to find a business that's owned by somebody who was a fellow bomb disposal engineer, that type of thing. So the search would be slightly different. And then into Europe, into those other countries that I served with in Afghanistan, Italy, Spain, France, and so forth. So lots of opportunity to expand it. And the idea being is to create this network across the world for businesses to work with each other, as well as corporates to access those type of businesses. So it isn't so much around the B2C side of things, so about finding customers at the end point, the small end of the wedge. It's about the large end of the wedge. It's about doing B2B business with each other. There's no reason why an American veteran-owned coffee company can't work with a UK veteran-owned coffee company and swap coffee roasts. Guest roast this month is over from the UK, and they sell that into the US, and likewise. They don't spend any money with each other. They just give each other 10 bags of coffee. You put this on your website, I'll put this on my website, and you can just ship it very easy these days. There's no reason why consultants can't work together, because they can work across the globe, in different manners. So there's lots of opportunity for people to really think outside of the location, the country that they're based in, and expand in. And I think that's where there's great opportunity for all those veteran-owned businesses from different countries to work together. And corporates, lots of global corporates are coming to us and saying, can you find us a veteran-owned business? Yeah, we can in the UK. Are they able to supply globally? Yes, some can. No, some can't. But the bigger that network is globally, the more opportunity it is for global suppliers to come and say, right, find me one in America, in Singapore, in Australia, in Canada, wherever it might be, France, Spain, Italy, Sweden, Finland, it doesn't matter. The availability, the database is there, and we can just keep plugging and doing that connection, and introducing people together and hopefully working together and start getting more diversity into those supply chains.
Right. Yeah. That's totally what I sign as well. I mean, it's not just about corporates buying from diverse-owned businesses. It's also buying from each other, right? I mean, the network
Absolutely.
is so huge, and they all buy something as well to run their business. So it's big opportunities there as well. So Scott, that was so interesting, and I'm so sad we're already at the end of our conversation. But that's great, and thanks so much for opening the door to your organization for us. It was very, very interesting, and I love hearing about your plans, and looking forward to seeing more from Veteran-Owned UK.
No, brilliant. Thanks very much for having me, Andrea, and hopefully we get to catch up in person again soon.
Yes, I hope so too. Thank you so much. So, if you want to make your supply chain more inclusive or want to know more about Veteran-Owned UK, reach out via fipsconsulting.com or Fips Consulting on LinkedIn. Listen to my next episodes where I talk to more experts about supplier diversity and inclusion and the impact it has on their business or organization. Reach out if you have any inputs or topics around supplier diversity and inclusion you want me to talk about. Thanks much for listening, and bye, Diverse-Owned.